I can still hear the crack. It wasn't loud, not like in the movies. It was soft, almost like a branch snapping under snow. But that sound changed everything. My daughter, Lily, was lying motionless on the asphalt. Her pink helmet cracked in half. Her small bicycle twisted under the front bumper of Mrs. Corman's SUV. The HOA president. The woman who'd been just trying to teach the kids a lesson about riding too fast. Her white gloves were spotless when she stepped out. Mine were covered in my daughter's blood. Neighbors peeked from their porches, whispering, filming, judging, and as I held my broken little girl, I heard her faintly breathe. Then nothing. That's the moment I stopped being a neighbor, and the moment she unknowingly picked a fight with the assistant commissioner of police. Before everything shattered, our mornings smelled like coffee and sunscreen. Lily would wake up first, always before sunrise, dragging her tiny backpack down the hallway, her curls bouncing like question marks. My wife, Emily, would pretend to be asleep, giving me that half smile that meant your turn. I'd make pancakes shaped like stars, badly, and she'd still laugh as if I'd performed magic. That sound, that laugh, was my morning alarm. We'd moved into Crestwood Meadows 2 years before the accident. It was one of those neighborhoods that looked perfect from the outside, manicured lawns, white fences, and the kind of silence that hides rot beneath. Every Friday, the HOA would patrol with clipboards, measuring grass height like it was a matter of national security. I didn't mind the rules, not at first. After 2 decades in law enforcement, structure felt comforting, predictable. No one in the neighborhood knew my title, Assistant Commissioner. Emily thought anonymity would help us fit in, help Lily have a normal childhood away from flashing sirens and late-night knocks at the door. So, I was just Aaron, the quiet guy who mowed his lawn on time and waved politely. The first time I met Karen Corman, she was carrying a binder thicker than a Bible. Crestwood Standards, she'd called it. Her handshake was firm, smile tighter than her pearls. "You'll find we run things properly here," she said. I'd smiled. That's good to know. I didn't realize then that she didn't run things, she controlled them. Weeks passed. Lily made friends on the block, mostly younger kids. She'd race them down Maple Drive on her pink bike, tassels flaring in the wind. Sometimes she'd stop in front of the Corman's house to pick the dandelions that grew through the cracks in their perfect driveway. And that, apparently, was a problem. Because one morning, we found a notice taped to our front door. Violation, child obstructing driveway. Safety hazard. Fine, $75. Emily laughed it off. I didn't. It wasn't the fine. It was the way it was written. No name, no explanation, just authority. The kind that hides behind rules to mask control. Still, I let it go. I'd seen real monsters in my line of work, gang leaders, human traffickers, abusers. An HOA president didn't even make the list. But I underestimated her. Karen had the kind of power that wasn't written into any law. Social power. The whispers, the phone trees, the newsletters. By the second month, people knew when we left for work, when we came home, and that Lily's pink bike violated the community's aesthetic code. I started noticing small things. Garbage cans mysteriously tipped over a crack in our mailbox, neighborhood meetings scheduled at hours we couldn't attend. Emily told me, "Don't make enemies. It's not worth it." So I smiled, mowed my lawn, waved at Karen, and paid the fine. But every time I saw her, clipboard in hand, lips pursed like a knife's edge, I felt the itch. That quiet, familiar instinct I thought I'd retired with my badge, the one that senses danger before anyone else does. I should have listened to it, because 2 months later, on a sunlit Saturday morning, Lily would pedal down Maple Drive one last time, and the woman with the clipboard would be behind the wheel. It started small, like all poison does. A note slipped under our door. Your child's play equipment is visible from the street. Please remove or conceal it within 72 hours. Signed only, the HOA board. But everyone knew whose pen wrote that. I remember Emily reading it aloud, her voice trembling with disbelief. It's a swing set, Aaron. Not a meth lab, I smiled, kissed her forehead and said, leave it. I'll handle it. But I didn't, because part of me still wanted to believe we could just live. The next morning, Lily's swing set was gone. Just gone. The posts had been unscrewed, bolts left scattered like crumbs on the grass. No footprints, no witnesses. But the timing was too perfect. The HOA truck had made its inspection rounds just an hour earlier. I confronted Karen that evening. She was pruning roses, wearing her sun visor and that smug, motherly expression she reserved for people she thought beneath her. "Afternoon, Mr. Daniels," she said without looking up. "Everything all right?" "You know it isn't," I replied. "Someone trespassed on my property." "Took my daughter's swing set." She smiled, still pruning. "If you're referring to the non-compliant structure visible from the road, the board authorized its removal under Section 8C of the Neighborhood Code." My jaw tightened. "You entered my yard without consent?" "Not me, dear," she said, feigning innocence. "Our maintenance volunteers." "It's all in the bylaws." That was the moment I realized this wasn't about a swing set. It was about control. She paused, wiped her gloved hands, and looked at me with eyes that had no warmth left in them. "Rules are what keep a community safe, Mr. Daniels. You, of all people, should appreciate that I wanted to tell her I understood rules better than she ever would, that I'd written policies that saved lives. But Emily's voice echoed in my mind. Don't make enemies. So I just nodded and walked away. A week later, we got another letter. Lawn overgrown. Violation, $50 fine. Our lawn was trimmed to regulation height. I measured it myself. Neighbors began avoiding eye contact. The Joneses, who used to invite us over for barbecues, suddenly had plans. The kids who played with Lily stopped coming by. Word spreads fast in quiet places, faster than truth ever can. Then came the real breaking point. One evening, I was returning from a late briefing downtown. The sun was melting into the horizon, painting the street gold. I turned onto Maple Drive and froze. A small crowd had gathered in front of our driveway. Lily was crying. Her pink bicycle was propped against the curb, a bright yellow sticker slapped across it. Violation: toys obstructing roadway. Fine: $100. Karen stood there, clipboard in hand, addressing a few other board members like she was holding court. Emily was beside Lily, holding her close. "She was riding for 10 minutes, she pleaded. "It's a cul-de-sac." "There are no cars here," Karen sighed, exasperated, as if she were the victim. "We've received multiple complaints about unsafe riding. The HOA has to act in the community's best interest. Rules exist to prevent accidents." I stepped forward. "Accidents?" My voice came out colder than I intended. "You're harassing a child for riding her bike." Her gaze flicked to me, her tone sharpening like glass. "Don't raise your voice, Mr. Daniels. I'm documenting this interaction for the record." That's when I saw it. The subtle satisfaction behind her polite mask. She wanted me angry. She wanted a scene. So I didn't give her one. I crouched next to Lily and peeled the violation sticker off her bike, then turned to Karen. "You talk about rules. But rules without humanity aren't justice. They're tyranny." Her lips curved. "Justice?" You sound like one of those cop shows that line lingered. Because she didn't know. She had no idea who I was. 2 days later, I filed a complaint with the HOA mediation office. A formality, really. The same board members who enforced the fines were the ones reviewing the complaints. Predictable outcome. Case closed. No violation of HOA policy. Emily wanted to move. She said she didn't feel safe here anymore, not for us, but for Lily. But I'd just been promoted. We couldn't uproot that easily, so I promised her it would get better. I promised I'd handle it. I didn't know that promise would cost us everything. The next few weeks were quiet. Too quiet. Karen stopped her daily rounds. The newsletters came without passive-aggressive jabs. Even the fines stopped arriving. For a moment, I thought maybe we'd won. Then, on a bright Saturday morning, the sound of Lily's laughter filled the air again, high and pure, echoing down the street as she raced her friends on their bikes. I remember pouring coffee, watching her through the window. Her helmet gleamed in the sunlight, her tassels danced. Everything felt right again. Then I heard the engine, Karen's silver SUV, crawling behind them, slow, too slow. At first, I thought she was just passing through, but she didn't honk, didn't wave, just watched. Then she accelerated, Lily swerved, the front wheel caught the edge of the curb, and then, crack. My coffee cup shattered on the tile before it hit the floor. That's where the chaos began, and the rules stopped meaning anything. I don't remember leaving the kitchen. 1 second, I was behind glass, a man in a quiet house. The next, gravel bit my knees and my palms were torn and Lily's tassels were caught under the SUV's front tire like party streamers crushed after midnight. Her helmet, the pink one with star stickers she'd arranged into a crooked constellation, was split in two. The seam looked surgical, as if the road itself had taken a scalpel to her childhood. "Lily," I said, but no sound came. My mouth moved. Someone else screamed. Emily was beside me, barefoot, blood in the cracks of her toes where she'd stepped on the broken mug. She gathered Lily's head, then pushed it away from her chest as if remembering a lesson half learned. "Don't move the neck." Her hands hovered, fluttering above our daughter like terrified birds. I focused on the details. Focus is a habit of survival. Your eyes choose one thing and worship it until your mind steadies. Mine chose the bolt from the old swing set. Small, rusted, still stained with the oil I'd used months earlier, lying near the curb, as if history had spilled into the present to say, "You were warned." "Call 911, I said. The words finally came out. "Now." I pressed my fingers to Lily's throat. Heat radiated off her skin. Her pulse was a trapped thing, quick and confused. Her lips trembled. Karen stood 8 feet away, one hand on her door, the other on her phone. "I told you," she said, voice tight, a violin string pulled too far. "I told you this would happen. Children should not." "Stop talking." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't look at her. I just said it the way you recite an instruction that has become an instinct. The cul-de-sac watched. Curtains parted like eyes. A neighbor in gym shorts kept recording. Another whispered into her palm, already narrating a version of the story where she wasn't a coward. "Hold her," Emily said. "She's trying to move." "Don't let her move." My hands framed Lily's face without touching. "Baby, stay still." Stay still. The way I dragged the word made her eyelids flutter. She was trying to answer me. Sirens in the distance, a thin electromagnetic whine rising. Karen took a step toward us, chin tilted as if she were about to give us a citation for bleeding on her asphalt. "Ma'am," I said, turning my head at last, "step back from my family." Her mouth twitched. For the first time, her confidence drained a degree. "I was going 5 miles an hour, she said. "You can ask anyone." They were in the middle of the road. I had to enforce the "shut your mouth," Emily snapped. The quietest woman I knew, cutting through the morning like a blade. "Just shut up." Karen took another step back. The ambulance braked so hard the rear lifted. 2 EMTs spilled out with a board and a collar. She had a fall? The taller one asked, already kneeling, already scanning, already working the checklist. Vehicle impact, I said. SUV, slow speed, frontal, helmet fracture, loss of breath for approximately... I looked at my watch and realized I hadn't looked at it for an eternity or maybe half a minute. 10 to 15 seconds. Pupils equal. Pulse at the carotid is rapid and thready. The EMT looked at me, surprised. Are you... Put the collar on, I said, please. He slid the foam under her neck. The other EMT steadied Lily's head, and for a breath there was order. Order felt like oxygen. As they lifted her onto the backboard, Lily gasped. A single sound sharp enough to slice the air. "Daddy?" she said, voice small and bagged with pain. "I'm here," I told her. I walked beside the board as they rolled, one hand floating above her shoulder, not touching, wanting to hold her and knowing I couldn't. "I'm right here, Lily." "Don't be scared," Karen called after the EMTS. Her bike was obstructing the roadway. The HOA has clear guidance. The shorter EMT paused on the ambulance step and stared at her. There's a look first responders learn to use when words don't qualify as answers. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He closed the doors. For half a second, silence returned, the kind that bounces. Then my work phone rang. I looked down and the caller ID glowed with a name that, to most people on this street, would mean nothing. To some, everything. I let it ring out. I was not the assistant commissioner in that moment. I was Lily's father, and nothing else demanded my attention. As the ambulance pulled off, a patrol car skidded to a stop. A young officer stepped out, uniform neat, jaw tense, and Karen pounced toward him like a cat toward cream. "Officer," she said, "I'm the HOA president. I'm happy to provide a full statement. The children were in violation of..." The officer looked past her to me and Emily, then at the smear of rubber on the pavement, then at the helmet lying like a broken shell. "Ma'am, I'll take your statement in a moment." He came to us, his voice low. "Sir, ma'am, are you able to make it to County General? We'll need your statements, but you should be with your daughter." "We're going," I said. "I'll follow the ambulance." He nodded, then turned back to Karen. He put on his report face. "Your license and insurance, please." She bristled. "Are you suggesting—" "I'm asking," he said. Emily gripped my arm. "Aaron, go." I turned to the officer. "Secure the scene. Gather footage from doorbells, any cameras at the cul-de-sac entrance. And..." I stopped. Old habits were walking back into my mouth. I moved first. Muscle memory from decades of training, draw, aim, vocal commands. "Drop it!" I shouted. Karen's mouth opened. "You!" she began. Her finger tightened. The first shot cracked like a tree falling. It was not at me, it was at Lily. She fell forward, small and bright against the concrete, her sundress flowering with a darkening stain. The world condensed to the scream that ripped from my chest, the kind of sound that is not human but something deeper, older. I dropped my phone. It hit the gravel and skidded across the driveway, the recording still going. The camera caught the haphazard angles. My hands trembling, Karen's face collapsing into disbelief, her husband's hands flying to his mouth. She did not remember the rest in clear, orderly sentences. We do not remember grief cleanly. Memory becomes a collage of details. Lily's last breath, the heat of the pavement, the copper taste in my mouth. Karen dropped the gun as if it burned. She backed away and sat on the curb, shaking, whispering, "I didn't mean..." She moved. Around us, time fractured. Neighbors came out, drawn by the noise. Some cried, some stood frozen. A woman in a floral dress vomited and had to be led inside by a neighbor. My uniform was still on beneath my shirt. The badge at my hip felt absurdly useless. I pressed my palm to Lily's chest. It was colder than it should have been. I felt for a pulse. I counted, but nothing answered. Her little heart monitor, the kind that chirped in lullabies sometimes, screamed to life and then fell silent when the paramedics cut it away. Hands moved around me, paramedics, deputies, but none of their words reached me. I was a man outside of rules, outside of badge, outside of rank. A father reduced to a rag. When they finally secured the scene and I saw Karen's face lit by the flashing lights, I realized she didn't know me. She didn't know the name behind the badge. She was a woman who had believed rules could be enforced with force. She was a person who had just destroyed a life. I cuffed her myself, not because I had to, but because I could not let go of the idea that order required action even as order had betrayed me. She whispered as we led her away, "You people don't belong here." I wanted to tell her then. Tell her the badge I wore was the same one I'd been wearing when she called the board into session, that I had sworn to protect the very ideal she'd claimed to uphold, but my mouth only formed words into the air. "You shot my girl." The shot did more than ruin a family. It cracked open a neighborhood and let everything rot inside out. Secrets oozed. People took sides. The press arrived with birds of prey eyes. For a long time after, I replayed the footage, the clinical clarity of timestamps, because I needed proof the world couldn't deny. The grainy pixels showed what my heart could not forgive. The screen became a small, cold altar. That night, I sat in the kitchen with Lily's paint-stained socks in my hands and realized that nothing would be the same. The ramp that had stood for hope was now a crime scene. The mailbox that used to receive friendly notes now held subpoenas. And in the center of it all, a woman named Karen sobbed in a cell, telling anyone who would listen that she had been protecting the neighborhood. Protecting it from what? A painted ramp? A laughing child? A father who once swore an oath? The thing about turning points is they don't just change the path. They rearrange the map entirely. They say time heals. They lie. Time just stretches the sound of the shot until it fills every quiet moment. That first night, I couldn't leave the hospital corridor. My uniform shirt was stiff with dried blood, her blood. The doctor's voice was gentle, but the words were iron. She was gone before she hit the ground. I nodded. Lawmen are trained for finality, but nothing in the academy covers the sound a mother makes when she's told her child won't come home. Renee collapsed. I caught her halfway down. We stayed there on the tile, a pile of grief in fluorescent light. The coroner's report came next. Single gunshot wound to the chest, direct cardiac trauma. The irony was vicious. After all those surgeries to fix her heart, it was her heart that the bullet found. Karen was booked on manslaughter, unlawful discharge, reckless endangerment. She cried in the mugshot. The flash caught the same pearls she'd worn to HOA meetings. The news ran it for weeks. HOA, President shoots sheriff's daughter. It sounded like satire until it wasn't. I couldn't make myself go back to the station. I sat on the porch instead, staring at the splintered ramp under crime scene tape. Every creak of the boards sounded like her voice. Every dawn felt like a failure. Neighbors came by. Casseroles, flowers, awkward sympathy. Most couldn't look at me. Some whispered, "We're so sorry." Others asked in hushed tones, "Do you think she meant to do it?" Meant to. Mini cliffhangers are not just for stories. They happen in real time when your life breaks into chapters you didn't plan. Cliffhanger. 1. A nurse came to the doorway and said, "The officer at the desk says the driver is requesting to speak with you." I stood. Emily inhaled as if the air might stab her. "Don't," she pleaded. "I won't," I said. "Not yet." I walked to the waiting area and saw Karen pacing by the reception desk, her pearls reflecting blue from the monitor's light. She looked smaller without her clipboard. Intimidation often requires props. "Mr. Daniels," she said breathlessly, as if we were allies late to a meeting. I came to— No, I said. Her head jerked. No? You don't speak to me. You don't speak to my wife. If you have something to say, you say it to Officer Clary. Or, if you prefer, to the prosecutor I'm going to introduce you to. She flushed, then straightened. I was teaching them, she said. You don't enforce rules by ignoring them. I was simply pacing them to slow them down. Pacing, I repeated, with a 2-ton vehicle. I barely touched her, she said, more to herself than to me. She fell. The sticker— I stepped closer, enough so that the edges of my vision blurred, and all that existed was her face and the tremor in her mouth. Go home, I said, and pray your board's group texts are as clean as you think they are. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, maybe, that I was not who she'd decided I was. She opened her mouth, closed it, then she left. I watched the automatic doors swallow her, and the moment they did, my phone rang again. Cliffhanger 2. It was Chief Patel. I answered. Aaron, he said, tell me Lily's okay. I pinched the bridge of my nose. She's going into surgery. Compression fracture, silence. I'm so sorry. Clary's at the scene, I added. He's collecting ring footage. There's a narrative forming. I need it contained. You want me to assign someone from Crash, he said. I want you to assign no one who bowls with the HOA treasurer, and I want you to hold Karen's phone. Today? On what grounds? Investigative preservation, I said. There's a pattern of harassment. The removal of the swing set without consent. Fines disproportionate to offenses. I need board emails. I need text chains. You need to be a father right now, he said, voice gentle. Let me be your chief. I'll take it. We'll do it right. I closed my eyes. Thank you. And Aaron, he added. I'm putting a uniform outside the OR door. You don't need it, but I'd sleep better. I said nothing. He knew that meant yes. Back in the family room, Emily stared at the plastic bracelet around her wrist like it was a shackle from a bad dream. She said the word walk like it was a question, she murmured. I sat. We won't let anyone else decide the end of that sentence. Her eyes met mine. Promise me something. Anything. If justice asks you to be a cop before you're a father, choose father. Just this once I took her hand. It was cold and damp, like she'd been swimming through fear. I hear you, I said, I do. But the truth is, inside my chest, 2 wolves had started circling. The man who makes a dinner and braids hair, and the man who writes orders and signs warrants. They were both hungry. Cliffhanger. 3. Officer Clary appeared, hat in his hands. Sir, he said, we have 2 ring angles. One shows the SUV following the kids at a crawl. The other shows the moment of impact is obscured by a parked truck. But we captured her speed based on frame-by-frame analysis between 2 fixed points. And 9 to 11 miles per hour, he said. Slow but forward motion at the moment she clipped the bike. Emily's hands flew to her mouth. She had been pretending maybe the SUV hadn't touched. Maybe Lily had fallen alone. Hope borrows its lies from the smallest technicalities. What about audio? I asked. He shifted. That's the part I came about. We pulled the board's group chat from a neighbor who volunteered it. The HOA president, Mrs. Corman, posted earlier this morning. If the parents won't keep their kids off the road, I'll pace them myself so they see how dangerous it is. Maybe a scare will teach them manners. Emily stared at him. She wrote that? He nodded. Time stamped 34 minutes before the crash. The world thinned. Not an accident. A message. A lesson. I felt a quiet begin somewhere inside me, like heavy snow falling in a field that used to be loud with birds. Preserve everything, I said. Don't share beyond command. No leaks. He hesitated. Sir, with respect, the neighborhood's already talking. Then give them nothing that feeds them, I said. Let them starve. He nodded and left. Emily leaned forward, hair curtaining her face. A scare, she whispered. She tried to teach our daughter a scare. I touched the back of her head, my palm curved around her skull like a shield. I know,